little bit of a different video from me, and based on what is going on in the world today, and having been a sewer for most of my life, I was wondering if I could actually sew a mask with the materials I have at hand. And I searched high and low for some quilt material, which totally surprised that I appear not to have any in my home at all. I must have given it all away. I have probably about 100 spools of thread, all different colors, but fabric, no. So, but I did find, yes, I do have a couple of rolls of batting and a couple of rolls of sheeting fabric. And sheeting fabric is actually ideal for this. It isn't very colorful or very pretty, but it'll do the job. So before I made this video, I tested out, I made a couple of models to see if it was at all possible. And the first one, I worked out a method of tying on using a drawstring, but I used cotton cording, which is actually, I think I like it a little bit better. The way it works a little bit better than the ribbon. The ribbon might be a little more pretty, but it just didn't, it was a little harder because of the width, not to tie it in, because you do want movement on this in order to adjust the mask for different people. And as you can see, it's a surgical type mask. It's very small, just goes across the nose and face. And after trying it on, I decided to add this little pleat here in order to retain the shape a little bit better. And if you can hear that it is fairly crinkly, there's something in between in the fabric here. And in my research, I have determined that just sewing a fabric mask is pretty much a waste of time. The mask itself needs something inside that is a non-woven material. Non-woven meaning that there's no holes through it. Having been a quilter, you find I searched high and low, and yes, I do have a number of items in my home that are non-woven material. Not a lot, but I have enough to make masks, a few of them. One of them is using cotton batting. Now, the cotton batting that I used to buy and have a couple of rolls of to this day, it uses something called scrim. It has scrim, and scrim is a sort of glue, I guess, that they use in order to keep the cotton fibers together. So that becomes, because of the scrim, that is also a non-woven material, and I had considered trying to make the mask with a piece of cotton batting in the middle, and decided that no, it would be way too warm. Perhaps if it was the dead of winter and you were using it outside, it might be really nice to have, but with spring coming on and the weather getting warmer, cotton across your mouth and nose would be, or should I say cotton batting that we use for quilt making, would be a little too warm. So I also found this product, and it's normally used to glue two pieces of fabric together. It is a sheet of glue. That's what it is, and it's iron-on. And what you do is you iron it on one fabric, and then you pull the paper off and fold your fabric over, or whatever fabric you're using, and iron it on this side. And it's typically used to iron on applique onto a quilt, and I found for quilting it was a little on the stiff side, not something you really want to use. You know, you want quilts to be soft. But I had a bunch of this left over. I can't remember why I bought it or why I used it. I do have some thinner ones, but for the masks, I think it works perfectly. So, okay, so what I've got here is a piece of fabric cut to 8 inches by 8 inches. And what we want to do with this is fold it over and iron on this product on the one side. But before I do that, I think I'm going to fold the edges over here and sew them on. Okay. Okay. I have stitched the edges together just to give it a clean edge there. And at this point, what I want to do is add in, and that's too large. I've got to cut that smaller. For some reason, I measured wrong. You only want this to be on the inside a little bit more. That's right. Okay. So now I'm going to iron this on, and because it is not the newest product, it's been in my home for a little while, it does take some time to, either that or I don't have the temperature up high enough. It appears high enough to me, so we'll see what happens here. But it will take a minute to glue down on that side. Okay. Not yet. No. You want the paper to release and leave the glue on the fabric. There it is, okay. You can see that it's a different texture there. That's all shiny. That is the glue. And what we're going to do now is fold this over. And I want to close these up as well. Before we finish putting this together, we want to string our, actually we could probably do it afterwards too, it doesn't really matter, but it's a lot easier if we sew up the edges here and string in the well, I seem to have had microphone difficulties here, so I'll try to fill in now. Watching it. So what I've done here is I've fed the ribbon into the mask itself before I glue down both edges together. What we want to do is sew the edge down, because what we want to do is create a channel for the ribbon to move through freely. And so I have pinned both ends at least just to get the ribbon seated on the first part. So the trick here will be to sew each edge. Okay, what you're seeing here is that I did sew it down at the very edge, and I'm just checking to make sure that the ribbon does flow freely at either end before I create a channel. And you have to try and move the ribbon over to the very edge so that you don't sew it into the mask and have it not move. So I'm working the ribbon over to the very edge and trying to keep it there with the pins. And as you can see where I want to create a channel. I also want to sew down the bottom end there. So as you can see where my fingers are moving, that's where the sew lines are going to be. Okay, so I've sewn it, and just once again checking to make sure that the ribbons run freely through the channels that I've created, and they do. If they don't, you have to start all over again. Okay. And tying a knot in the end just to ensure that the ribbon does not slip out. On the other hand, you can take it out and you can feed something else through that mask if you prefer it over the ribbon. That's what I had on hand, and I'm trying to make this with materials I had in the home. Okay, so at this point we want to try and give the mask a little bit of contour to fit the face. And what I do is find the middle point, and I'm just going to create a little wedge there. So I'm just going to sew a little pleat right at the center. Okay, my pleat's sewn, and now we want to contour the rest of the quilt. We've got to create some more pleats on the side. And we do not want to sew in the channel. Once again, we want to make sure that our ties move freely. And yes, the mask has become stiff now. I forgot that, yes, we do have to press or glue the other side together at this point. So I'm taking the iron and I'm gluing the backing fabric onto the glue itself, so it becomes one piece as opposed to one with fabric and one with just glue. And I'm checking to see if it's stiff. Unfortunately, I lost the sound, so you can't hear it, but yes, when it is glued together, it is very stiff. And you can hear that it's stiff. Okay, it appears as though I'm ready to add my pleats on the side. And we just want to sew them right on the inside of the channel where the ribbon moves. So I'll probably take that to the sewing machine, do both sides before I come back. And it does get a little harder to work at that point because it's a bit thicker. And yes, I'm just showing where the sew line is going to be. Okay, and that's the mask completed. The pleats on both sides have been done. The pleat in the middle is done, and I'm just checking to see that the ribbon moves freely. And after it's completed, I did try this thing on, and I have nothing but sympathy for anyone who has to wear one of these things. No matter how fine and thin it is still constricts the breathing, it's still warm. And anyway, what can I say? It's a sad day. It's a sad day. Anyway, that's it for my video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.